Hello and welcome. In the 1950s, there was a train of thought that the lightweight bus was the way forwards. Traditional heavyweight buses, like my Leyland Leopard here, tended to be powered by a large engine that didn't work overly hard. This meant that there was less strain on the components, but there was still plenty of grunt left for getting a fully loaded coach up hills and such. The idea behind the lightweight vehicles was that they could use a smaller engine, although this engine would be working a lot harder, but this would improve fuel economy. In the 1950s, Bristol launched the LS model light saloon, and this was followed by the Bristol MW, which was the medium weight version, which replaced the LS in production. They also had the Bristol SC, which was a front-engined model, and the Bristol SU, which was an underfloor engine model, which superseded the SC. With the launch of the Bristol RE in 1962, Bristol had an underfloor rear-engined single-decker bus that could be offered in two lengths, 36 foot and just over 32 foot. However, without doubt, these were heavyweight models, being powered by the Gardner 6HLX engine or the Leyland 0600 engine. The last Bristol SUs were delivered in 1966, and the first prototype LH chassis, LHX-001, was delivered to Eastern Coachworks in August 1967. This was bodied with a 45-seat, 30-foot long bodywork and was powered by a 5.8 litre Perkins diesel engine, which was located under the floor just behind the front axle. This drove through a Turner gearbox, which was the same gearbox used on many of the Bedford and Ford models. Unloaded, it had a credible weight of 5 tons, 300 weight and 1/4. The journalist Alan Townsend gave it a test drive for Bus and Coach magazine in January 1969 and found the gears to be very tricky and the steering to be rather heavy. He wasn't particularly impressed. The second chassis, LHX-002, was a Leyland engine Bristol LH, which featured the 0400 6.54 litre diesel engine, and this was retained in chassis form by Bristol for development work. The third chassis, LHX-003, was the first example of the short LHS, lightweight horizontal engine, short wheelbase 6L model powered by a Leyland engine. This bus was for Western Welsh and received a second-hand body from an Albion Nimbus, this body being built by Wayman. This was registered MB01F and was meant to be one of several buses that received the bodywork from an Albion Nimbus. However, it actually ended up being the only one. Production LH construction began at chassis number LH101, which was for Southern National MU0334F. Now, these early Bristol LHs had what was called the Eastern Coachworks bodywork with the shallow flat windscreen, and it soon became clear that taller drivers couldn't see out through the top of the windscreen clearly. So after the first year of production, the windscreen was made taller. In November 1968, the Tilling Group announced orders for 116 LH buses and 6 dual-purpose buses, all bodied by Eastern Coachworks, plus another 4 duple coaches for Thames Valley. There were also orders from the Scottish Bus Group in its 1969 programme, 18 for Scottish Omnibus, 8 for Alexander Midland, all on LH6P Perkins engined chassis and with Alexander 38-seat coach bodies. Later there was an option for a semi-automatic Bristol LH, which was fitted with the Wilson type 4-speed gearbox, which was supplied by self-changing gears and mounted amidships in the chassis. 1968 would also see the first of the Bristol LHL, lightweight horizontal long wheelbase 6L models, which were all fitted with Plaxton 53-seat coach bodywork. The LHL had a capability to take 36 foot or 11 metre bodywork and was without doubt a very popular vehicle with independent coach operators. Now, it could have been regarded as a competitor for the Bedford VAL, which used the same Leyland 0400 engine and the same Turner Clark gearbox, although this was mounted vertically at the front of the chassis, rather than underneath on the Bristol LH. The Bedford VAL was having severe problems with brake lining and tyre wear, which was related to its small wheels and the geometry problems with its twin steering front axle layout. So the LH here seemed to have the advantage. It was an underfloor engine and it was a 2-axle chassis layout with proper size wheels. The majority of the Bristol LHLs were bodied by Plaxton, initially to the Panorama design. As Plaxton updated their range, these new models, such as the Supreme, were also fitted to the Bristol LH and the Bristol LHL. Some independent operators also took the Bristol LHS as well, bodied as a coach, where it could hold somewhere in the region of between 30 and 33 passengers. From 1971, the Bristol LH Eastern Coachworks bodywork was fitted with the BET curved windscreen, and this would probably become the better known bodywork on the type, and would become synonymous with the National Bus Company. In 1971, the Bristol LH programme did lose a little bit of momentum, with only 11 being supplied, all with Plaxton bodies, and for independent operators, including 2 each for Grey Green, Shelbourne of Dublin and FG Wilder. Now, although I've said it was synonymous with the National Bus Company, and I've talked about the independent operators that bought the LH as a coach, it could be found in a wide range of fleets, everything from municipal fleets through to the PTEs. Although widely associated with rural services, it was used in a lot of cases in cities and big towns, where a bit like the later minibuses, it could weave its way through small housing estates. It's also worth remembering that the Bristol LH was launched just at the right time, as in 1965, Bristol were able to sell their vehicles back on the open market, which opened up their sales to a whole new range of customers. A fair amount of these buses would be bodied by Eastern Coachworks, but there would also be bodies built by Northern Counties and Jupil, which added a lot of variety to the Bristol LH story. Another bodybuilder who built bodywork on the Bristol LHS was Marshall of Cambridge. They went on to supply bodywork for buses for Western National, Southern Vectus, Gash of Newark and Harveys of Mousehole, to name a few. Marshall would also go on to body 10 Bristol LHs for Western National as coaches, and these were rather strange looking vehicles featuring a Plaxton front panel, a BET style windscreen and large flat side windows. It was around this time in the early 1970s that the big Bristol LH fleets started being built up. In 1973, United placed an order for 50 vehicles, and United, along with Western National, would go on to own the 2 biggest Bristol LH fleets in the country, with fleets of over 200 vehicles each. The most significant Bristol LH order of that time, though, was for Ulster Bus Limited, who ordered 100 LH6L chassis with 45-seat bus bodywork built by Alexander Belfast. London Transport was looking at a suitable vehicle that could replace the surviving RF Class AC Regal 4 single-deckers. This resulted in a Devon General LHS and a Hanson Dorset LH, together with an LH chassis, being sent to Chiswick for examination in 1973. London Transport also looked at other types as well, notably a Sedan Pennine, so the BS and the BL class could have been totally different. They could have been Pennines rather than LHs. In November 1974, a significant order came from London Transport, who ordered some 95 LH buses with basically standard Eastern Coachworks bodies, which were built to 7 foot 6 inches in width. These were also unique in being fitted with a semi-automatic gearbox and power-assisted steering. Meanwhile, around this time, Eastern Coachworks had developed a new bodywork for the Bristol LHS. They had reduced the rear overhang by about 2 foot to bring the length down to just 24 foot, and this could seat 27 passengers. These initially found favour with West Yorkshire, Cardiff, and again London Transport, who took 6. 11 more followed in 1976, and these became the BS class. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't possible to fit the fluid transmission from the BL class into the shorter chassis, so these had 4-speed manual gearboxes. That must have been fun driving those around London. even in the suburbs. Both the BS and the BL were to have very good lives with London Transport and were to prove popular buses with London Transport. Indeed, when they were withdrawn, a lot of the former London Transport vehicles went on to serve long lives with their new operators. Companies such as OK Travel snapped them up. And there we go, we've reached the end of part 1 of the Bristol LH story. In part 2 we will be looking at the end of production, removal vans and open tops. I kid you not. So don't forget to join me for the next episode of the Bristol LH story. I do hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please like and share it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on when I release part 2. Also, don't forget to comment down below. I do love reading your memories, your comments and everything like that. What were your memories of the Bristol LH? Have you driven one? Have you ridden on one? What did you think? I'd just like to thank you again for watching and supporting my YouTube channel. It all means an awful lot to me. Bye for now.